What's up traders? In this video, I'm going to be performing a market forecast on USDJPY using smart money concepts. So stay tuned. Now, something I enjoy doing over the weekends every now and then is pulling up a random pair, something that I don't trade at all, and just performing some technical analysis on it, right? Practicing, putting in those reps of applying those concepts. And I figured, why not bring you guys along with me on this particular occasion? So we're going to be looking at USDJPY, something that I don't trade. And we're just going to perform some top-down analysis and look at what this pair is potentially going to be doing in the future, all right? I like doing this exercise and then halfway through the week, coming back to the pair and just seeing whether or not the market has respected my analysis, all right? And this is also a great way of, in real time, identifying potentially new pairs that you can add to your watch list, right? In the absence of actually backtesting historical data. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off on the weekly time frame. As you can see, we're on the white background today, so something a little bit different. We're on the weekly, and we're just gonna be focusing on our most recent price action in here. After we put in this all-time high, we can see that we had a very sharp pullback. All right, now we were obviously bullish on our way to putting in that high. We can see that we have this switch from bullish to bearish, and it does now look like we're trading within this particular weekly range with price action now in that weekly pullback. All right, now another way that you can look at this is you can focus in on this weekly break of structure in here, which means that it would have originated from this low, and you would now be waiting for the formation of your new weekly range, right? But I prefer to look at it in this way, and doing it this way means that at the moment we are currently in a weekly pullback, right? And then if we just quickly define the extremities of that range, you can see that we have a weekly strong high up in here that obviously gave us that break of structure. We have our weak low down here, which is the low that we would obviously now anticipate to be violated after this pullback has completed. In terms of our supply zones, we can see that price action was interacting with a weekly supply zone in here, all right, which price action is now seemingly trading through. So if this supply zone does indeed fail and we do get that deeper mitigation, I would say the next supply zone, the next area of interest would be this supply all the way up here. So our weekly time frame is currently telling us that we are in this bullish pullback phase. We are seemingly trading through this weekly supply zone in here. This would then be that next supply target. We have a nice amount of imbalance. This weekly level is obviously acting as the liquidity for this particular zone. So this would be that next decisional point for us. Obviously, if we are to see a continuation of this underlying bullishness, our weekly strong high would need to fail. All right, so keeping that now in mind, and we can go ahead and let's just quickly mark out this inside bar in here, which could be fairly important. And whenever you're performing that technical analysis, all right, go ahead and mark out all of your valid zones that you have seen reaction points from. Make sure that it is a valid zone as well, because doing this is just a little bit of practice. All right, now that we're done with our weekly time frame, let's drop down to that daily and let's look at what price action is doing. And now, so we can see we have that weekly supply zone in here that price action is now currently trading through. We do have that weekly demand in here, that inside bar. And as you can see, after price action forms this weekly low, we obviously have our pullback, all right? So we can see that we have price action creating these breaks of structure. This was our last major break in here. And now we have recently, all right, broken through here. So after we throw on those breaks of structure, you can see that after this break of structure, our initial range would have been this particular daily range in here. Obviously, it would have been a bullish range because we're in that weekly pullback. The anticipation would have been for price action to mitigate this supply, potentially even roll over. But you can see that we had a very minimal pullback. Price action actually consolidated in this area. and is now continuing, right, with this underlying trend. Now, again, you do have some options available to you. You can regard this as your last most relevant break of structure, and then you ignore this one. So then you're still waiting for that new high to form. You would then obviously just have a much larger range to play with. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on this as our most recent break. Now, with that being our most recent break, this low is going to be our new daily strong low. We are now currently in that new impulsive bullish phase on the daily time frame, waiting for price action to create that new high. All right. Now we can go ahead and we can mark out any valid supply and demand zones that we can see that have formed. We can see the price action is now tapping into this daily supply zone, which sits essentially at the extreme of the larger weekly supply. So we haven't broken out of that supply just yet. So there is potential for price action to give us a bit of a reaction from here. Another supply that we can also mark out is going to be this daily supply in here, which sits at the weekly supply above. So as price action has now given us this new break of structure, we've seen a nice break and close above here, a very strong one. Two things can happen. Either we continue with this underlying bullishness, violating the supply, targeting this new daily supply in here, right? We could be seeing a small reaction on a lower time frame to the supply, because remember, it is a higher time frame supply zone. So we can anticipate some form of reaction. Whether that is enough to give us a new daily pullback remains to be seen. But at the moment now, we're just going to be monitoring how price action does in here, waiting for that new high to form. And then obviously we can go ahead and we can mark out previous demand zones that have formed further down, stuff that have not been mitigated yet that could potentially provide reaction points in the future. But for now, these zones, zones like these are pretty far away. They're not really as important. So we just want to go ahead and we want to focus in on most recent price action in here. We can also see that we have a slightly refined demand zone that sits within that weekly inside bar as well, that we can just mark out just for future reference. Now we drop down to that 4-hour time frame, and this would typically be the time frame that we then use, all right, to get our directional bias. So we have that daily break of structure in there. We obviously have our daily strong low down here. And I think the most important or the most significant break of structure in terms of the 4-hour that we can see is going to be this 4-hour break of structure in here. We were trading sideways here on the 4-hour before price action gave us that break, but we now have this new bullish 4-hour break of structure in here. Now this break of structure obviously originated from this low, which means that this is going to be my new 4-hour strong low. You can see that on our 4-hour time frame, price action is quite clearly still trading within that daily supply, and we could very easily see a bearish reaction to this daily supply zone. That bearish reaction is going to be the 4-hour pullback of this new range whenever it forms. And what we want to do now is we want to establish where that pullback could potentially come into. All right, so let's go ahead and let's mark out those demand zones. First of all, we have our extreme demand all the way down here. Now, with this demand zone, what you'll notice is that you've got a nice strong bullish engulfing candle, all right? But you do have a large wick. So you have a couple of options available to you. Either you include the bearish candle before the engulfing for your zone, or you could refine it down to just the wick, all right? So either way is absolutely fine, but we're gonna keep it like this. And then we also have this demand zone in here. I like this demand zone because it is a flip zone essentially. We can see that price action came in, interacted with this supply. We did have a period of bearishness, price action respecting that area, and then we had the push up, all right? So this would now then be a new demand zone that could obviously also be refined on your lower time frame, say your 1 hour. So for this 4-hour time frame, what we're seeing now is we can see a new break of structure to the upside. We are now awaiting the formation of that new 4-hour high. We are obviously anticipating some kind of pullback to take place. This would be that initial area that price action could pull back into. At an extreme, we have that 4-hour demand all the way down here. But the overall anticipation would be a bit of a pullback into discounted pricing of the new range whenever it forms before that continuation takes place. Remember, your 4-hour is currently pointing bullish, and the reason your 4-hour is pointing bullish is because it is essentially facilitating now this bullishness that we're seeing on the daily time frame. So if we are to see this bullishness from a daily point of view push price action up towards that daily supply zone, realistically, once this new 4-hour range has been established, we're only going to be seeing a pullback into at least the extreme before that continuation takes place. Okay, now we do have this 4-hour demand zone in here, which price action did not mitigate previously on its way to giving us that new break of structure. So there is a possibility as well that this extreme could be acting as a little bit of inducement for price action to tap into this zone. We might not see a full break and close, but maybe just a wick into this 4-hour zone before continuing. So we can keep an eye on this area in here, and it does look like there was a little bit of a demand chain that was forming as well, giving us that one. So this demand is probably the demand we want to be focusing on, but let's see. All right, let's just look at the 15-minute. Let's see what that 15-minute is doing. We obviously have our 4-hour zones that we marked out. No surprise that our 15-minute is also pointing bullish. We've had our recent 15-minute break of structure in here originating from this low. And because our new break of structure originated from this low, this is going to be my new 15-minute strong low. We are now, as you can see, awaiting the formation of that 15-minute higher high in order to establish our new range. And what I like about this 4-hour demand zone is that it's essentially going to be sitting at the extreme of our 50-minute range whenever it forms. All right, so whenever we have a new break of structure, we can obviously anticipate a pullback. If we are to see bullish continuation overall, we would then be looking for bullish continuation to originate from this particular area in here. All right, we're in a nice situation because the daily, the 4-hour and the 15-minute are all pointing bullish. They've all given us recent breaks of structure because of the hierarchy of time frames, because the markets are fractal. Your 15-minute pullback is going to be the first one to take place. What you would then essentially be looking for is you'd be looking for bullish continuation from this area in here as your first area of interest. Now, at the moment, within this 4-hour zone, there isn't anything in terms of a 15-minute zone that we can outline. We do have this large 15-minute wick in here that we can draw on and keep an eye on for when price action does indeed come and trade into this area. But I definitely wouldn't be looking to trade from this zone directly. What I would do instead is I would simply monitor price as price action comes into this area. And in order for me to take a trade, I would wait for that clear shift in order flow from bearishness because of that pullback to bullishness. All right. Obviously, the reason I would want to do that is because of the fact that by no means is this going to be the only 4-hour zone within that new 4-hour range. There is going to be that extreme zone in here. So because of the fact that we could potentially see a deeper pullback into this zone, all right, it all depends whether or not this 4-hour zone is going to be well priced within the new 4-hour range. So from a 15-minute point of view, definitely once that pullback does take place, this would be the first area. But keep an eye on your 4-hour overall because we could be seeing a pullback all the way to this extreme in here. Now, as I said, this is not a pair that I trade, but this is an exercise that I like to do over the weekends. Just putting in reps, right? Putting in reps in the markets, practicing my charting work, identifying whether there's any little nuances that I can pick up on and potentially implement into my strategy. And then also, it is a good way of identifying potentially new pairs that I could be adding into my watch list. All right, so if you guys enjoyed this video, definitely give it a like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future content. I appreciate you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.